Okay. We're just still waiting for one more panelist to join on. He had a injury yesterday walking his dog. Oh, and there he is. Alessandro, we thought you might have gotten injured again.
No, I was moving just from the bed to the sofa.
Oh my goodness.
Look, my stretcher here.
Yeah. That's a real champion, willing to come on. Despite your injuries, thank you very much. Well, welcome everybody to today's panel about video games and diplomacy related to especially game development in Latin America. We have three excellent panelists here to share their perspectives, their experiences, both in their home countries, in Latin America, and in this past couple of weeks, talking with American game developers and educational technology policymakers. So without further ado, my name is Joshua Shen. I am a Foreign Service Officer with the U.S. Department of State. I am the person who is basically leading up our efforts here at the State Department to explore ways we can contribute and facilitate more video game connections around the world. And the three panelists today are an example of one of the programs here we're doing right now. We'll start with Maureen Berho. So Maureen is from Valparaiso, Chile. She is the CEO and producer of Niebla Games and business development manager at Jungle Robots. She's been doing a lot of projects and working with public and private institutions, and many of her projects, her games, have been selected for international showcases. PAX East, PAX West in 2018, Indie Game Arena at Tokyo Game Show, and many others. She's also a former member of the board of directors of the Chilean Trade Association of Video Game Development Companies back in from 2016 and 18, and country lead for Chile at the Latinx in Gaming currently. Next, we have Valeria Colombo. She's based in Buenos Aires, Argentina, and she's a computer science graduate from the University of Buenos Aires, 34-year-old, and she has been gaming since she had memory, basically, but working as a developer for the past 12 years. Today, she's the head of engineering at Ethermax. They created games like Trivia Crack and Word Crack, and a board member of Women in Games Argentina since 2019. She has a weekly podcast as well, where she comments with some colleagues about international news from the gaming industry. Finally, we have Alessandro Biello from El Salvador. He's currently working for Ludisk Games as business development manager, where he contacts video game developers with strategic partners in the video game industry. He started in this industry as a learning games designer, and now moves more towards a business development role to help fellow Latin American developers internationalize their video game titles with the Western market, US, Canada, and EU. And he's also, so thus he's got a lot of experience traveling and meeting with Americans as well. So with that started, I'll start with you, Valeria, about learning a little bit more about your background, how you got into the game development business.
Okay. First of all, hello everyone, hola a todos. It's a great pleasure to be here with you in this panel. How I started, I was studying computer science, and I was in my second year, I think, of the career when I started working as a developer, not in games. And a year from them, I noticed that here in Argentina, there were some studios that were making video games. I didn't know that in Argentina, there was video game development. So when I realized that there was, I send everything. I say, okay, goodbye work, with goodbye boring work, and I start sending curriculums to all the companies that were in that moment. There weren't a lot of companies, but there were a few, and I had the luck to enter one. I started making games for Facebook. It was 12 years ago. It was the famous type of game in that year was the resource management games in Facebook, like the Farm one and all that kind of games. So I started doing that. I continued studying my career, and well, I haven't left the industry since then. When I started my first work in the industry, I said, I will never leave this. This is awesome. I love the creative space that this industry has. So I am hoping to never have to leave this. And now I am in Ethermax. I have been in Ethermax for the last 5 years, and I am leading a full segment of gaming for all the games that are in production today.
Thank you. Maureen, we'll move to you.
Thank you, Joshua, and everyone for the opportunity of being in this panel. I'm very excited about it. In terms of my own experience and how I got started in the industry, as many people here in Chile and in Latin America, I think, I come from a very different background. I had my undergraduate degree in sociology, so it was completely unrelated. But when I was in the late stage of my career with a few friends, we realized we wanted to make our own projects, maybe go into entrepreneurship with something that we were passionate about. So we started prototyping tabletop games. And then with a lot of innocence, we thought, why not making video games? That it's fun. It sounds like fun. We probably need to team up with programmers, artists, animators. And just as Valeria was saying, I didn't know that there were companies already developing awesome games in Chile back then. So with all naivety, we thought it must be easy. So let's get started. And it started out as a hobby, but then it's somehow scaled and turned into something more serious. And now I'm glad to say that it's like a concrete career path. And while we went further into game development, we were able to meet all this community in Chile that is very open and collaborative and always giving, like, sharing their experience, feedback. So here I am.
Thank you, Maureen. Alessandro, your story.
Okay, I'll try to make it as short as possible because I tend to use a lot of storytelling in this. Well, I fell in love with video games when I was about 11 years old. My brother was living in the US and he sent me an Atari with some games. And the first game I got in my hands was Asteroids. So I fell in love with the game. I finished the game. I couldn't go to bed, and my mom was telling me go to bed, and I was trying to sneak in my mom when she was sleeping to play. Then I grew up playing games my whole life with all the consoles. I love consoles, so I played all the consoles. I have owned all the consoles, and when I was maybe like 33, 34, as Maureen says, being a little innocent and naive, I said, I'm going to get into the video game industry. But how so? My father always said that a fully grown man should have done 3 things in life. And he said, planting a tree, having kids, and writing a book. So by that time, I have already planted many trees because I love trees. I have a son already, and I said I have to write a book. So I said, what better way than writing a book as a video game? So I've been teaching English my whole life. So I decided to start in the learning games. And I designed a video game to learn English. That was back in 2010. But then after 5 years or so of trying to get into the educational video games industry, I realized that it was tough, and my partners and I, we lost a lot of money. And this is something very important about the IVLP program, is that for the people who are newcomers in the industry, they can realize these things that I learned the hard way. Because we really lost some money, and then we realized that these games are awesome tools, but in the profitable side, in the business side, they are very difficult to get a hold of. And so we started making more entertainment games, and we decided to make the US and Canada like our playing ground to learn about the industry. So I've been attending all the events that I could in the last 3 years. I've been at GDC, I've been at PAX, I've been at Indicate. We belong to some communities, as Maureen was telling about Latinx in gaming and so on. So that's been my life, and video games are my passion.
That's an amazing story. I haven't planted a tree yet, so I need to get on that. It seems like
you should do that.
Seems like the easiest one too.
Yeah.
So my bad. Just turning into that, I mean, it seems like you all have very different ways of getting into this. And Alessandro, you came into it pretty late. Valeria, you kind of had that computer science background. And Maureen, you had a more kind of a social activist type of background. Tell me a little bit more about the game development pipeline in your country. I mean, it's not easy to sustain yourself as a career, and all of you want to stay in this as a permanent career, but that requires making money and getting a chance to learn from others. And I'll start with you, Alessandro, but before I hand it off to you, I want to say thank you for all of you for doing this in English, because we're very privileged that you speak our language, my language here in the United States, much better than most of us probably speak Spanish. So thank you very much for that. Appreciate your outreach to us. So Alessandro, back to you about the game development pipeline, because you seem to have a lot of business experience.
In El Salvador, about 7 years ago, they started with a grant, a government grant, to make video games. So the idea was to create video game studios in the country, since there weren't any. And we were one of the first studios to win that grant. That's how we started learning mostly the business side, because the government was really naive as well. They thought that we would make a video game and it would be a hit, and that would impact the economy in a few years. But then we realized that it wasn't so easy to make that breakthrough, right? So there were about 15 studios, and out of those 15 studios, we still have like 5 studios, and in the whole country, maybe there are like 12 studios. The problem is that since only video games is not very profitable for them. I mean, making video games, because some video games take, the pipeline is 2-3 years. For example, our latest game is 4 years. We've been in development for 4 years. That's tough for the economic side, right, from the business side. And so some of these studios are taking more work for hire and working with marketing agencies and so on. We also have a university that has a career on video game development. So we have these new guys that are coming to the market, and they are starting their own little studios with 2-3 people. And the good thing is that there are some of us that started way back in 2010, and we have a little bit more experience, and we have learned the hard way. So we have the opportunity to talk with this young blood and tell them that, as you say, at the end of the day, you have to pay the bills, right? You have to make some money, you have to make a living. So that's something that we always tell our young guys, that they have to focus on making the video game, obviously, but they need to learn about business as well. So this is something that in the whole region, in Latin America, I've talked with a lot of Latin American developers from Brazil, Argentina, and so on. And one key problem that all of us have had in a certain point, it's been the business development part. That's why I started as a business developer 3 years ago, and I work only on business development. I'm not a video game developer per se.
So, Alessandro, that was a very good point about the kind of like at the end, when you are already capable of creating games, you already have storylines and animators and all of those. What you need, that market and business understanding. Valeria, you were studying computer science from, from university. Tell me, how does that work if I were a kid growing up in Argentina? I love video games. I have a knack for tinkering around with programming or with animation. How do I find a career in this industry?
Okay, now the things are very different from when I started. When I started, there were just like 5 or 6 companies. They were little. They were growing, but they were little, and there were no careers in game development in any university, in any college. There weren't. Now, today, we have a lot of careers, university careers and tertiary careers. That is a shorter degree. There's a lot, and there are a lot of groups like Women in Games Argentina, or Fundab, that is the Foundation of Video Games, or ADVA, that is the Association of Video Games. We have a lot of agrupations that give scholarships and that make courses and that organize game jams and have groups of mentors. So now it's very easy for someone who says, "Oh, I want to know about game development," to start from a younger age, to talk to specialists that are working in the industry for a lot of years, and to tell them what we are doing and how we started and how we made a living about it. I always worked for companies, so I always had a salary. Here, the game development is very well paid, so I never had problems to live for this that I like to do. But there are a lot of indie companies also that they are struggling every day. They are looking for publishers outside of the country. It's very difficult if you want to do things yourself. And as Alessandro said, there are a lot of careers that teach you how to do video games, but no one teaches you how to make a business out of video games. But the industry here in Argentina is very big. It's growing fast. I have some data here. We have, according to ADVA, the Association of Video Game Developers, we have 120 video game studios and about 2,000 specialist talents working in the country. And not only here in the capital, all of the country has a lot of focus in different cities of groups of a lot of companies. We at Ethermax are in all the country, not just here in the capital. So the industry here is growing fast, very fast.
Wonderful. Going to you, Maureen. You came to this industry from a little bit from the outside, as you described, many people do that here in the United States, in Canada as well. So tell me about the experience of coming into the industry from the outside, from looking at it from a different field, and how you made a career this way.
Well, I think even though in my case with the career that I studied, it's very clear that I came from the outside, I would say that it's a common experience in Chile and Latin America, I think. because game development is related to entrepreneurship. So, for example, in Chile, the first studio, game development studio, currently active, was founded in 2002, the oldest one. And then the Video Game Association was founded in 2009 with like 8 companies. And today we have around 60 companies, almost half being associated in a unique trade association. So it's still an emerging and new industry. We just like most of them being entrepreneurs. So we are all in this spirit of learning and collaborating. And most of us didn't have like the opportunity of, for example, working for 5 or 10 years to get experience in the industry and then go for entrepreneurship. Most of us just have to learn from scratch. And just as Alessandro and Valeria was mentioning, it is very hard to do so. It's a lot of risk and it requires a lot of passion. But fortunately, here in Chile, and I think in many countries in Latin America, there's a growing ecosystem, and both the entrepreneurs and also other agencies like public agencies, universities, are recognizing the importance of fostering this sector with different programs, like educational programs specific to video games, that we are making like our best to make it in connection to the reality of the professional field, and also with programs by different ministries, like supporting game development through grants, and also promoting the Chilean games abroad, both as a commercial, like a commercial side, but also the cultural side.
Well, that's good. It seems like there's a lot of organizational support, like these trade associations, Women in Games, and other associations, but also uniquely, I think different from the United States, is that there is a lot of public institutional support, governments, and things like that. I wanted to talk about an issue that is really a hot topic here in the United States, which is the issues of diversity, representation, inclusion in video games. I'm curious, Maureen, what is the discussion? Is that discussion being had related to Chile and for everybody, Argentina and El Salvador? And how do you feel developers in Chile and the game community there can contribute to the broader global discussion about diversity and inclusion? Maureen?
Yes, I'm glad to say that that's a very important topic here. Like both private and public actors are aware of the importance of diversity, both in terms of like a moral issue, social issue, but also in terms of how we create a successful business and cultural projects like art. I think we are also in a very early stage in which we need to consolidate the industry to make sure that we are able to work very strongly in fostering diversity, because in Chile there's around 500 professionals working in the industry at the moment. And there's still like a lot of issues related to work, like for example, around 40% of the labor is like freelance still. So there's still like basic issues that need to be addressed. Also, a big portion, like I would say 1/3, according to our most recent survey, 1/3 of the companies are don't have earnings, like they are in a very early stage of just investing, being most solo devs. So in this early stage, I think representation issues are very apparent, like very present. For example, most of the companies, like there's 20% of women as professionals in the industry, which is even lower than the global average. But fortunately, it's higher than previous years. Like a couple of years ago, there was 14%, for example. So we are positive in that all the programs by the public agencies, like grants aimed specifically for women, for example, are having some positive impact in both bringing professionals to join teams and also new entrepreneurs. And another issue that is also very present in Chile is the territorial issue. Like most of the companies are present in the capital. So there's just a few companies in the north and the south, being Chile a very long country. So one of the positive outcomes of the pandemic are all this connectivity and online mode that helps us to connect. And that's also why we are here today, I think. So all these issues are recognized, and I hope they can improve, but there's still a long way to go.
That's very important. What about the, you've seen the conversation here in the United States about it, and I'm wondering if you've ever felt like, oh, we here in Chile, we can help address some of those issues. I don't know whether it is through, providing ideas for content or learning experiences. Have you ever thought about how the community in your country can contribute to the discussions we're having here?
Well, I think part of it is the effort that we are doing in Chile and also with other associations in Latin America through the Latin American Video Games Federation, an organization that gathers trade associations across the region. We are also working to make Latin American game developers more present in the global scenario. So we can bring new voices, like as part of the global south, into the center. So that's also something that is present, and I hope that can also open more diversity in the industry in general, not only at the local state.
Wonderful. Alessandro, I'll move to you in talking about diversity and inclusion in your country, some of the issues that you guys are dealing with, but also, again, what you think about the global conversation.
Yeah, well, the scenario here is pretty similar to what Maureen was stating. The industry is not fully grown, as we are in the very early stages of this. We do have women working in our studio, and I think that maybe there is not a cultural issue from what I've seen from all the other studios that are located or based here in El Salvador. There is not such thing as big like these different gender differences and stuff. And the problem has been that the girls in the past didn't study coding, and there was a general knowledge in the country that engineering was for men, and other careers as marketing or human resource and business administration were for women. So that's the path that children took, right? But nowadays, I think universities are doing a great job on this, because we have like two of the largest universities in the country are betting for these new careers in video game development and animation, and they are promoting it a lot with women, with girls, with young girls. So they are joining these ranks, and as the time passes, we have more and more girls who are involved in this. So, and you were talking about global thing. We are kind of learning from the mistakes in other countries, all these issues that you might have or that you might find in Europe or the US. So we are learning from this, and we're trying not to do that. So I think that that's a good thing, because we are in the early stages. So we are already learning how the industry should grow in a diversity perspective, right?
That's, I mean, you make a great point about, although your guys are at the earlier stage, it's also an opportunity to make sure you get it right from the very beginning, rather than having to change a culture that is, resistant to change. Valeria.
Okay, where to start? Yes, the reason why we founded Women in Games Argentina was because we wanted more women to know that they can work in this industry. Maybe areas like art or design, there are more women, but engineering is a problem. As Alessandro said, when I was studying computer science, maybe there were or just me or two women in the whole classroom of the subjects in the career. I think that today there are more women, but there are still so few. So part of the work we are doing in Women in Games is like tell good experiences, like say, hey, you can do it. You will not be alone. There are a lot of us. We will be waiting for you. We will be mentoring you and accompanying you, so that more women and dissidencies can join us and work in this industry that is so creative. Worldwide, we are doing an event that is called the Women Game Jam. It has 4 years. It started 4 years ago just in Brazil. The next year, it was Brazil, Argentina, and I don't know which other countries, but a few. Last year, there were more countries, were Canada and a lot of Latin American countries. And this year, there are countries of all over the world. We have countries in Africa and Europe. There are a lot of countries. We opened the form of screenshot this Monday, and we already have 200 women that want to be part of this game jam. It is growing so fast. We are so happy because it is a work that we are making between women aggregation from a lot of countries, and we are trying to make more women to participate. Of these 200 inscriptions we had, I think that 60% said in the form that they never made a video game in their life. So it's a lot. It's so important to know that there are like 100 people that will make a game for the first time in their life with mentorees and mentees that are women that we are already working in the industry, and we tell them that you can do it. Like you can do it. Like me. I here in Argentina, we have a report from this year that just 20% of the management positions in science and technology organizations are held by women, and I am one of them. I am in a head of engineering position in a big company that started here in Argentina, but now we have offices in Berlin and in Uruguay and Brazil and Mexico. We are all over the world, and I have a very good position in the company. And so I want to tell the story to all the women that are looking for a career, that you can do it. You can be a good leadership and a woman in games.
I love that. And I noticed your backdrop, Women in Games Argentina, and the very awesome logo. Can you give a shout out to your social media account?
Yes, you can find us in womeningamesart.com, but I will put it in the chat now. Here we have Micaela in the chat putting all the info. She's another of the board members and co-founders of Women in Games.
Well, I think leaders like yourself, not just breaking through, being one of the first women who are working in the industry, but also taking a management position, but then also committing yourself to mentoring future developers in this industry. I think that's so important. And it's in the State Department. Actually, that was one of the early programs I wanted to set up. I wasn't able to fully get this off the ground. I still would like to see this, which is a virtual mentorship program through, I'm not sure if you know of a group called like Women in Games International.
Yes.
So with an organization like that, or with a university, how do we kind of use that network to create a global mentoring session that could help someone like you, but then you can turn around and help someone else as well? So that's wonderful to hear that, and you inspire me to make sure that gets off the ground. So on that note, we are on something you referenced, Alessandro, called IVLP, which is one of the most important State Department exchange programs, if not the most. Every year, about 5,000 to 6,000 foreigners come to the United States. Non-Americans come to the United States for 2 to 3 week exchanges. They cover all different sectors in society. It could be journalism, it could be engineers, entrepreneurs, educators, civil society activists, lawyers, young politicians, and for the very first time ever, we have video game industry professionals. So tell us, you're at the end of this 3-week experience. We've done this virtually this year. Can you tell us what were some of the lasting impressions from your experience this 3 weeks? I'll start with you, Alessandro.
Okay, yeah, well, it's been great. As I was mentioning, it was really important because it was one of these sessions that we were talking about video games in education, and some of the panelists mentioned that that these were not profitable games. We had someone from Sony that said they have all the resources, they have the software, the machines, the money, but really that's not something that they bet on. And some of the guys who are in partners with us in the program, they were saying, wow, that's amazing for me. That I never thought about that. So one of the great things about the program is realizing all these things that happen in the industry, right? Because we have industry leaders talking with us. We can make questions. It's like I learned a lot from the esports on that session, that it was all about esports. And also I was learning on how to implement video games, but in the educational districts in the US. So I was thinking about some ideas on how we can convince people down here to start using video games more on this. So I think that is a great opportunity for us foreigners to know firsthand what's going on in the US, right? And since the US has one of the top spots in the video game industry, I think it's crucial to understand what's going on with all these companies.
Definitely. Thank you very much for saying that. And also, I want to add, for the people viewing, make sure that you start asking the questions in the Q&A section. So we'd love to have Valeria, Alessandro, and Maureen have a chance to answer your questions. So for you, Valeria, any single impression that stuck out with you?
Yes, it has been a unique opportunity. I am so happy to have been part of this. I think the opportunity to connect with the colleagues all over the continent, a lot of countries that I didn't knew anything about the industry of game development. For example, in El Salvador, I didn't know how they do it. So it was awesome to hear all the voices, one of each country of my continent. So that was awesome. And also to learn a lot about Games for Impact and of esports in the United States. All the things you are doing, the things that you bring video games to schools and university, and I hope we can do that in Argentina. I will tell everyone about the things you are doing because it's something to copy. It's awesome that you teach kids to play. And one of the things is that the girls and boys that that use video games have more chances of studying an STEAM career when they are older. So I think I learned a lot. That's it. I'm very happy to have been part of this.
Well, we were very lucky to have all three of you. Maureen?
Yes, well, I totally agree with Valeria's and Alessandro's impressions. I'm also very grateful for the experience and the invitation because it was, of course, unexpected. And it's been awesome to learn about multiple topics. Like we've gone from esports, educational games, game for impact, to entrepreneurship, distribution of games, and also the COVID impact. And I love that it's always put in the context of the US, like the different states and the professionals in their local context. And of course, as Latin America is such a big region, it's funny that we get the chance to meet all these professionals, developers, non-profit people like working in organizations that we don't get the chance to meet in other contexts. So I've also had the opportunity to talk with professionals from places that I didn't know anyone before from the gaming industry. So it's been a unique opportunity in that sense.
Well, thank you. And yeah, I mean, half of it is, half of the experience is to meet your other participants and learn from them and build that network. And hopefully the other half is to build that network with the speakers that you listen to during these 3 weeks. Maybe I can kind of follow up on the COVID thing, as well as the global conversations about diversity, and ask you to make a pitch to American indie developers or large studio employees or educational administrators. How can we here in the United States or in Canada use your expertise more? Use people who work in the industry from your country more? Because whether it is, careers, whether it is content ideas and storyline ideas, how would you make a pitch to Americans who never considered someone from El Salvador or Argentina or Chile or any of the countries that we were represented? I'll start with you, Maureen. Sorry.
Well, I think I would say that there's a huge opportunity because in one side, Latin America is one of the untapped emerging markets that is growing fastest in the world. So in terms of audience, there's a lot of growing potential, and partnering with game developers and gaming professionals in the region is one of the ways in getting closer to this opportunity in a market that shares a lot of similarities in terms of culture. So that's one thing. And in the other hand, I would say that it's clear that gaming is an industry that is very inspiring because indies and all the creativity and the passion is very important. Most of the biggest steps and more inspiring steps that the global industry gives or makes are due to creativity and things that are not mainstream. So I think Latin American voices are somehow diverse voices that have a lot to tell. So I would say that I invite them to learn about what the game developers are doing here in Latin America, because there's a lot of creativity and new stuff, unexpected stuff that I'm sure that will draw their attention.
Same question to Valeria, and also I really want to want you to highlight something that you think you guys do not necessarily better, but different and unique and needed.
Wow, that's difficult. But for the first question, I think the pandemic demonstrated that more people from Latin America was able to participate of conference like this one, like the GDC, like the E3. The most difficult part of being part of conference that are all held in the United States is the cost of going there. So maybe one help that we could have would be more scholarships for indie developers from Latin America to go to the conferences, and not just go there as audience, but to have more Latin speakers in all the conference that you may in the United States, like the GDC or this one, so that we can tell the work we do. I think that's one of the best parts that the pandemic had, that this kind of funnels where everyone is participating without having to travel. Now, I hope that this will pass soon, but I know that if this pass, all the conferences will be held online, on site again. And again, a lot of people will be left behind because they will not be able to travel there. Not audience and not speakers, but not the one also. And things that you could learn from us. I think, I don't know all of the Latin America, but here in Argentina, we are a very joint community. We help each other a lot. We make a lot of free events and mentorships and scholarships, everything in spite of making more people learn how to do the things. I think that union we have as Latins, that we want to help each other all the time.
That's wonderful. And I hope you're right that, well, I hope your hope that in the future, these conferences can be done with a hybrid model. So with in-person, but also online events, so that we can always think about access. I mean, I think maybe one takeaway from this conversation today is diversity and representation needs people to have access to these events. And we tend to think, oh, okay, as long as you can have the money and the the connections or the visas to come, then that's great. But we don't think about democratizing the access, and that's like the first step. So I hope every single event, whether it's PAX and Games for Change, I know is already thinking about keeping hybrid models. Game Developers Conference and every other event will make that mandatory almost, so that people from other regions can visit. I'm sorry for talking so much. Alessandro, turn it to you.
Yeah, well, I take on what you were saying about diversity, that it has to do also with people coming from Latin America like us. Like you said, opening these spaces is important. But I will go more to the business side, as I usually do. I've seen all these big companies like, let's say, Electronic Arts, Ubisoft, Niantic, and so on, hiring teams, third-party teams to develop some specific parts of their projects, and they always look to Europe. And they usually fund indie studios, like really, really indie studios with, and this is something that happened to me. I've seen they've been supporting indie developers who are at a very early stage, and I would say that are more inexperienced than my team is, and with maybe not the set of skills that my team has. But the problem is that they always look to Europe, like to see these little studios. So I think that they should start seeing more to Latin America. I like it that Xbox one of these days have a big event for developers in Latin America. So because they are starting to look for studios. So I think that all these companies should start doing the same, because we got, you said something that we are better at, and Valeria said that's a tough one for me. I would say that's an easy one for me. because Latinos in general in Latin America is a big melting pot, and we have a lot of experiences coming from Europe, from Japan, from the US. So we are like a cross-cultural community because we understand what Americans think, but at the same time we think how the Japanese or the Chinese think. So we have all these influences with cartoons, anime, music, and something that I realized working with teams in the US is that they say, wow, you are very creative. And because I had a meeting one of these days with some government officials, and they were telling me, Alessandro, what do you guys need? Do you guys need software, computers? And I said, no, we need the opportunities. Because I mean, you can have the best software, the best computer out there, but if you don't have creativity, if you don't have fresh ideas, it's difficult. And I think that in some respects, and I want to be very respectful with this, but countries like US and Europe, they are like recycling the same ideas and not moving to new ideas. It's like you see Assassin's Creed 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So the same IP, and they don't move on to new ideas. And that's something that they can find in Latin America. We have a lot of fresh ideas down here. The problem is that they don't know us. I think I think it's a problem now.
I think that's such a great way to conclude our discussion. And if I can summarize that is, I mean, that frankly, too many industries, even industries that purport to care about diversity and inclusion, they have such a US-centric or European-centric way of looking at the market. And then they expect everyone else just to follow along and just use that. But working with Latin Americans, not only do you guys have that skill set, so don't just look to Europe for back-end work or to do projects, but to your skills communities. But also, if you want to think about a game or a project that has a global reach from the onset and not expect everyone just to come to a US-centric story, then Latin America is the way to go. Like you guys have that cultural melting pot, that cultural milieu that understands different communities and cultures and their needs. So I hope that is a strong pitch. I would love to see more, maybe next year at the Games for Change conference. There could be like a whole, like an open house where, you know, indie studios in the United States or big AAA studios can meet Latin American game companies, and you guys can showcase, like, this is what we do, this is what we do, we can do this and this and this. And, you know, it will be a great way to network with each other. So on that note, thank you very much, all three, Maureen, Valeria, Alessandro, for taking time all this last 3 weeks, but especially today, to share so much valuable experiences and insights about video games. With that, I'll sign off today, and thank you very much.
Thank you. Muchas gracias.
Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.
Muchas gracias.
Bye.